let's start with teams whose stock is up right now. And Case, will go to you first.
Yeah, I made sure to wear my vest, if you didn't notice, because we're talking stock, and I love that stereotype. It's hilarious. And I actually got a ticket today speeding in my Beamer as I pulled over the median. But anyways, I got right into it. And when I started to think about kind of stock up and stock down and who's where and should they be there is my main thing. I wanted to do an analysis of their stock, not just say it's up and down. I looked at kind of 4 main indicators to try to judge if a team should be there. This is probably going to be a little statistic heavy, and I apologize for that if you're not into it, but a lot of people are starting to go the way of advanced analytics, and I am definitely one of those people. So my 4 main indicators that I looked at is expected goals for and against, the start of their stars, shooting percentage, and save percentage slash, goals saved above expected for their goalies. And I'll start off on a positive note and talk about with a team that stock is way up, and that is the LA Kings. So right away, I'll get into kind of, where their stock is 5th in the league. We did not expect that necessarily. We had them as a playoff team, but we didn't expect them to be 7-2-2. So should their stock stay there? Should you be selling? Should you be buying? What's the situation? Well, when you look at goals for and against, LA currently has a goal percentage of 60% in their games and an expected goal percentage of 57.43. So they're kind of just slightly above where they should expect to be, which again tells me that they're playing to their capabilities at the moment. When you look at the stars, Kempe, Fiala, Kopitar, they're all at or above a point per game. Byfield has 10 and 11. Danault has 7. Doughty and PLD are at 6. So maybe you can say that that's a slow start for the 2 of them, but I'm not worried about them. And when you look at goals above expected for their stars, there's actually action on both sides of the spectrum, which again tells me this is the way they should be. Doughty and Kopitar have scored more than they should expect at 2.9 and 2.6 respectively. But Fiala should be scoring even more, and the same with Kempe and Dubois at minus 2.3 for Fiala and minus 1.4 for Kempe and PLD. So the Stars have shown up and they're playing well. Their shooting percentage is relatively high at 11.91%. To start the season, you expect a lot of teams to be pretty high, but 11.91% is above the Seattle Kraken where they ended the year last year, top of the league with 10.91, I think. Or 10.9 something. But the fact that their expected goals aren't off the chart because of this paints a better picture than the shooting percentage itself. Save percentage shows that they could actually improve here. And yet again, maybe that balances out their own shooting percentage in terms of projecting wins overall. And their save percentage is at 90.22%, which has them 24th in the league. It's been 2 very different stories in net so far between Copley and Talbot. Copley having a minus 6.3 goals save above expected, which is 4th last out of all goalies who have played a minute.
Oof.
That's tough. Talbot having a 6.6 saved above expected is 5th best in the league. So they kind of even each other out right now. You should expect Talbot to be getting the nod way more often than not for the rest of the year due to these stats. But just looking at this team and how they've started off 5th in the league, 7-2-2. Again, it's not what we expected, but because it's above where they're expected, but the stats don't lie. This is where they should be. Expect them to stay near the top of the table, especially in the West, as many teams seem to be struggling out there.
Yeah, well, that's a good point to finish it off with, because that's what I was thinking the whole time. Maybe LA is the team that will benefit the most from Calgary and Edmonton stumbling so hard out of the gate, because both of those teams have barely won any games, and LA has been a team taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned goaltending as well, because that was something I was looking into, mind you, for more fantasy relevancy, just looking at that tandem in net, because Talbot and Copley going into the season as a tandem wasn't ranked near the top for a lot of people, including myself, but we knew that they played behind a pretty good team. So it's interesting to see that Talbot is the guy right now who's sort of taken starts and run with them, playing 9 games so far. And it's interesting as well to see that Copley, who was really good last year, especially down the stretch, has really struggled out of the gate. So interesting to see how those two goalies have started. I would expect both of them to kind of regress a little bit towards the mean, but I don't think goaltending is going to be as big of an issue as we thought going into this year anyways for LA.
Yeah, I know that in our fantasy league, LVB, he was looking at the two of them and trying to decide which way he should go. I think he passed on Talbot a little earlier and ended up taking Copley, thinking that it's going to be like a 50-50 scenario, actually thinking that it might be more like 55% Copley going into the season. A lot of people expected that.
Because Talbot was terrible last year. That was the problem.
Exactly. And it's been the exact opposite so far this year. He's, an analytics darling at the moment.
Yeah, and just when you were talking about the scoring of this team as well, I couldn't believe it. Like when I heard you say it and then also looked it up to confirm, like Quinton Byfield is out to a great start to the season. And also another player who's been there for a little bit longer but still on the up and up is Arthur Kaliev, who's had a pretty good start to the season.
He's had a good start for sure. I think they're finally kind of playing Byfield correctly, I guess I'd say, and that they've moved him to the wing and they're playing on a top line. I know he's played, I think, most of the time with Kopitar and Kempe, which is a fantastic first line to have. Kempe has been great for me in fantasy as well, just like he was last year. Easy keeper for me. But Byfield, it's good to see some production out of him and some consistency more than anything. He's had little streaks where you think he might finally be unlocking his potential, but I think they have him in a good situation now and a good team with a good system. So it's working for him. Fiala, like I still stand by. I wanted him so bad in fantasy because I'm expecting some high numbers out of him. And he started over a point per game so far. Not crazy. I think 12 and 11. But again, he's got his goals up below expected. So expect better things out of Fiala still to come.
And speaking of Fiala, this is something that our buddy Kenny from Data Draft will tell you. He is a notorious second half player. He always has better numbers in the second half of the season. So I don't know what that really boils down to, but the trajectory of his career has followed this same path since the beginning. The second half of the season, he always has better points numbers. So that could be a target in fantasy for sure. And just going back to Byfield, the guy's playing 15 minutes a night. I think that is the perfect sweet spot for a guy who, you want to put out there in favorable situations, but you still need to play him enough so he's able to make an impact, and he is.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking about this team and haven't even mentioned their power play, which they're currently leading the league in goals with 33, but their power play is, I think, 17th in the league. So that's still something that they, from the toolbox that they haven't necessarily unlocked that yet. So if they can get their power play clicking as well as their penalty kill has so far this year, this team could be dangerous. It's like, and come playoff time, maybe a cup favorite.
For sure. Yeah, I noticed that too. The power play, I mean, they've got so many weapons on this team. Like, it's not going to be bad for long. Not that it's bad right now. I think it's clicking at like 20% or something, but there are some teams who just absolutely go off on the power play to start the year. The Devils are one. The Leafs are usually another one. Vancouver's power play is disgusting right now. So, but yeah, I would expect that to get better for sure.